It's 2023, and as an aviation reporter, life lately has been about pee and poop. Well, unfortunately, that is because of the alarming increase in cases of unruly passengers. Now, the incident of a passenger urinating, spitting, and even defecating on an Air India flight on the 24th of June has once again thrown the spotlight on why are we seeing an increase in cases like these, and secondly, what can be done to control these cases? Are there not enough guidelines, and what does the law say, if any? First, why are these cases happening? The Internal Air Transport Association says unruly passengers have increased manifold times since the pandemic. Let's first understand what really is happening in India. Let's first understand what are the rules as far as domestic air travel is concerned. Now, you would know that if you're a domestic passenger, alcohol is not served on any of our Indian carriers. But can a passenger consume alcohol and then board the flight? Well, the answer is yes, because you have enough cafes and lounges on most Indian airports. But when should a red flag be raised, either by authorities on the ground or the crew? They begin to monitor passengers and they look for these red flags. These red flags can be wobbly behavior, tipsy behavior, and then they can alert the authorities at the boarding gate. But the problem is this entire monitoring process is rarely done, or should I say, in most cases, is actually not followed, which actually results in this tipsy passenger actually ending up boarding a flight and then causing ruckus as far as other passengers are concerned. Now let's talk to you about what can happen if this passenger has already boarded the flight. What are the options as far as the crew is concerned? Firstly, the crew can try speaking to the passenger politely, tell him or her that their behavior is a risk to other passengers. It is what qualifies as an unruly behavior. Because remember, the air regulator, DGCA, has very clear guidelines as to what an unruly behavior is. It is anything that causes harm either to the passenger or others, or can be a flight risk to others. This is as far as the domestic scenario is concerned. Now let's compare this to the kind of guidelines that we have for international travel. And let's take Air India for example. After the very infamous P-Gate, the Shankar Mishra episode, the airline actually did a lot of rethinking, and they came up with a list of do's and don'ts that they spelled out for their crew as well to be followed in an unruly case like this. Now, what are the first measures that need to be adopted by the crew when they spot a passenger who is involving himself or herself in unruly behavior? First, they're going to try and be polite to the passenger, speak to the passenger, use tact, politely inform the guest that they could have gone overboard as far as drinking alcohol is concerned. Secondly, they'll try and explain the reason as far as stopping the service of alcohol is concerned. The airline also says that you should not try and increase your voice. You should try and offer an alternative, maybe a non-alcoholic beverage. As we pointed out, the advice given to the cabin crew is that do not increase your voice, because if you do so, the passenger will also increase their voice. On the opposite, actually lower your voice. Try and tell the passenger why this is unacceptable. Don't try and fall for the entire narrative of let me have just one last drink. Don't agree to the person, as I pointed out, for that one last drink. Don't raise your voice. These are the kind of guidelines that have been given to the cabin crew in a case like this. And most importantly, what the airline has also highlighted is don't put off the refusal. Act by the guest can be reasoned with. Don't think the matter is over, because clearly in the head of the passenger, the matter is not over. As we pointed out, post the original P-Gate episode, the airline did a lot of rethinking as far as guidelines are concerned. And they took a lot of input from the US National Restaurants Association guidelines as well. Specifically, it has taken on board the NRA's traffic light mechanism, which helps the crew actually recognize when a passenger could be problematic. And let me break down the details in terms of how this system is actually coded. See if the passenger is moving in a slow motion, if they have red eyes, if they're unresponsive to questions, if they have glassy-eyed, or if they're already spilling their drinks. In such a case, what can the cabin crew actually do? They can notify the captain or other authorities, and the captain can then inform the ground authorities that there is a passenger who could be intoxicated, and that is when the flight lands, he or she can be handed over to the ground authorities. Now the larger question is, rise in such episodes is raising the question that do we need the implementation of these international guidelines for domestic flyers as well?